Welcome everyone back to a new episode of Wildcat Dash for a special crossover edition. I'm Ryan Wall, joined by Josh Arod from Devil Dash. Josh, how are you today?
Doing good, Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well considering all the circumstances leading into special territorial cup tonight. So let's get into our first topic, which is who do you think tonight is going to shine and come out as the biggest playmaker from either side?
So, Ryan, it's tough. I mean, you look at the schedule. How many games has ASU played? We played two games, and they've both been, there's been a 3 week break in between those. So it's really hard to look at this ASU team and try and find, some kind of stability from an offensive standpoint. And I want to say the running back group, but that's one of our topics later. So I'm not going to try and steer clear of that for a couple of minutes. But I mean, I think it has to be Jaden Daniels. I feel like I say this every episode, but hey, he's the spark plug for this team. Um, Got to make these plays through the air and on the ground, and it really hasn't been there. But I mean, considering all the circumstances, it's 8 weeks, the rival games, the um, huge turning point for both teams because hey, they're looking for their first win of the season. I mean, come on, this is big stakes in the rival game. So I mean, I think the biggest playmaker Friday night has to be Jaden Daniels. He has to lead this offense. Got to keep U of A guessing, wondering what's going to happen. Um, yeah, what do you think? What do you think makes the biggest impact tonight for the Wildcats?
Yeah, you stole my choice. I was going to pick Jaden Daniels too, just because his impact is going to me affect the game in the biggest way. Being the quarterback and being the better quarterback out of the two, because Arizona is most likely to start Will Plummer due to Grant Cannell's injuries. So yeah, if Jaden Daniels goes off and does something like he showed last season, hasn't showed like the game breaking plays this year. So, but yeah, I do think that is in store for some point in the season for him. Like you said, they've missed multiple weeks, and after that USC game, they seemed like they were getting on a good roll, and then things got shut down. So yeah, I think he's going to go off tonight. I think he's going to shred Arizona's defense just because of all the people that the Wildcats have lost on that end of the football.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, Jaden has to do good, but I'm not completely sold on him yet. I mean, you can go back, you can crunch the numbers. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12. There's no doubt about that. But he really hasn't had it this year in the air or on the ground. And you can attribute that to the weeks off, like we talked about, and the spacing in his game. But he really needs to start incorporating these wide receivers a little bit more. And it's promising because we saw him against UCLA, and he did air out the ball a little bit more. He took some deep shots downfield, and I think that once you make those connections on plays like that, that is just going to exude confidence from him, and it's going to get better and better.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the play calling also hasn't looked the best for him. But on the Arizona side of things, I think it all goes through and starts on offense with Gary Brightwell. Gary Brightwell is their lead running back, and last week he was very good. He had over 110 yards. He had a touchdown. And in weeks and half the games this year, 2 out of 4, where he's had over 20 touches, he's had over 110 yards. So yeah, I think they're going to feed Gary Brightwell early and often tonight and try to grind that Sun Devil defense up.
I like Brightwell. I think he's going to do some damage tonight for sure. This game tonight is going to be a big ground game in general. But Wiley, I'm looking at Wiley's stats right now. This man had 7 carries for 122 yards, and A lot of that was a breakaway, almost a 50-yard run, but that dude shows some promise. I mean, he might be battling Brightwell for some touches tonight.
Yeah, both sides of the ball were have been good so far on the ground the past few weeks, but really, it's going to come down to Arizona's defense. Anthony Pandy, who's one of their leaders in the defensive side, linebacker, had 2 interceptions last week, and if he can play even and look half as good as that this week, I think he's going to keep the Arizona Wildcats defense in the game, just because they have a lot of walk-ons work, Freeberg and others, and they've just been struggling there. They don't have the consistency like they did even last year after a few um, veterans guys transferred out of the program. So yeah, I think Anthony Pandy could have a real big impact on this game tonight.
Yeah, and it is rival week. Anything can happen. Um, it's tough to say how this ASU defense is going to perform. And we played good. The thing is, we played 2 games this year, and our defense has been black and white in both games. It's completely different. I mean, and against USC, our defense played lights out in the first half, and in the second half, we just collapsed. Fell subject to Keaton Clover's air raid and some Drew McCoy lucky tip catch in the end zone. And then against UCLA, defense was nowhere to be found in the first half of the game. Gave up 17-point lead, gave up 17 unanswered points, and then they come back in the second half, lockdown beat. That's for a game-winning drive. Game, pretty much a game-winning drive. We did it with like 3 minutes left. So I think this both defenses will be on their toes. I think this will be probably a two touchdown game difference.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening in this game tonight. But it's gonna, to me, I think it's gonna come down to the offensive end for both teams, just because the last 2 weeks, neither team really gave up or in ASU's case, they haven't given up over, I believe, like 34 points a game this year. Well, they've only had two, but in Arizona, last week they only gave up 24, I believe. So yeah, both defenses haven't been giving up a lot of points. So yeah, I think it's gonna come down to which offense can just take over in the end and really prove that they're really good. Like Jalen Daniels, can he prove tonight against a weaker defense that he is a star in the back of the program?
I think you're 100% right. I mean, this is Jaden Daniels' time. It's his time to prove the haters wrong, especially in this season. This season, coming down to what it's been boiled down to, especially the 2 games. But man, just get your first win of the season against a U of A squad. Go for 300 yards, why don't you?
Yeah, on that note, let's get back and talk about more about which running back group will look the best tonight. There's a lot of talented running backs on both sides, Arizona and Arizona State. Which group do you think will play better tonight?
It's tough. I want to say U of A because that's really all they have at this point. I mean, if we're looking at what's his name's numbers? Will Plummer's numbers against Colorado. He went 19 for 32 with 154 yards and 1 interception. Man, that's QBR rating was 26.7. I just don't see any real stability coming from that area in the offense. So I know, ASU's backfield might be a little better and Chip and how he's doing right now, and having Jaden giving him the ball, whatnot, and little passes too. But I think that U of A tonight is going to rely heavily on their backfield, and You know, Wiley and Gladwell's numbers. I think those guys could do some damage.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as Jacob, my co-host on our Wildcat Cast, just mentioned, it's a huge proving game for both teams. I agree. And the O-line has been struggling for Arizona, and that's what it's going to come down to. If they can even give a little time for Will Plummer, I think he could play better. He's just it's unfortunate. He's a rookie. He's a freshman quarterback, and he's just dropping back and getting pounded, like sacked very quick. It's not all his fault. I think he has, by the eye test, I think he's played better than his numbers would say. As you said, his like quarterback rating, others. So yeah, I think overall, I think Arizona, their 1-2 punch of Michael Wiley and Gary Brightwell, I think is better than Arizona State's. I mean, Arizona State has the one good running back. You said his nickname Chip. He 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 looked good last week. He had over 100 yards rushing against um, against UCLA. But yeah, I think Arizona's rushing attack has been good considering everything that's happened to this program so far. They're averaging 161 yards per game between the two running backs, and I think they should do something similar to that tonight.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of my basis for this U of A having a better running game is partly me putting faith in Jaden Daniels tonight, right? Because if Jaden Daniels has the game that everyone knows that he's capable of, um, I think we're going to use, even though Colorado put up 300 yards, one of their guys put 300 yards on the ground against the U of A defense last week. I mean, looking at that from a coaching standpoint, see a weakness in Arizona's run defense. So you have to exploit that from an offensive standpoint somehow. But at the same time, is U of A not going to be, making some changes after that, after what happened to them last week? So I mean, if Jaden Daniels has the game that we all think he can play and you know, throw, make 25, 28 completions, then I don't see these running backs being the ASU running backs being a huge part in this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. But to me, if they do want to establish the run, ASU will, just because of the stat that I keep saying, which because it's mind blowing each time I say it, is Arizona's in their 4 games this season, they've given up 1,082 rushing yards on the ground over like the first month and 4 games, which is it's just terrible. Their defensive front is just one of the worst I've seen in years. They literally just get, like last week against Colorado, who had a decent run game, had multiple 3 or 4 times where they rushed the ball for over 65 yards, like each rush, which is that just can't happen. And if yeah, I don't think it's going to come down. I think ASU might go pass heavy and try to get Daniels going early. So yeah, I think it's going to be. I think Arizona might have the edge in this battle, but the quarterback battle goes to ASU.
Yeah, and with that being said, take a step back and let's look at past years in this game and Herm Edwards' style of play. You know, I can sit here and say that I think U of A running back group is going to have a better showing tonight, but we all know Herm Edwards loves to pace the game. He loves to run the ball. He did the same thing last year with Eno Benjamin, and it worked. I think scored a couple times in that game, had over 100 yards. I can see Chip doing the same thing, but at the same time, it's Will Plummer versus Jaden Daniels at the end of the day, right? That's where you just look at it and go, okay, Jaden, got to take over, man, right here. This is rival game.
Yeah, there's just a big gap there as well. Yeah, I expect this game to be a game probably decided in the 20s. I think ASU obviously is a better shot. I think they could go in the like low 30s. Maybe they can get to it. But yeah, I think this game could get ugly quick with just just like Daniels is really dynamic quarterback, and Arizona just not having that with Grant Goodell so far.
I mean, I could see this being a high-scoring game, but looking at history and how well ASU's defense has played this year, I think it will be somewhat low scoring. I mean, we could see ASU win, like you said, 35 to 14, something like that. But I really do not see the ASU offense putting up that many points. I mean, even if this U of Arizona defense has a total run defense, giving up 200 to the crowd last week. I just don't see it. ASU has not been consistent enough in offensive standpoint to make a mark like that, even on a U of A team.
Yeah, yeah. Both. It's weird. Both defenses have struggled at times by losing games, but really, ASU's defense they only gave up 28 points against USC, and last week only 25 against UCLA. But this year with COVID and everything going on, we don't know which team we're going to get each week because Arizona was, like, yeah, as you mentioned earlier, was really tight with USC in their first week, then has fallen down a hill after that where they looked like they could have beat USC just like ASU did in their first week. Yeah, it's going to be weird to see which group we see from both sides.
I got a question for you. Over under 430 yards total rushing both teams tonight. What do you got?
That's a big number.
Big number. Arizona, you guys put up almost 300 alone
Uh,
last
I know.
week.
I know. I just don't know. Like we're saying, like I don't know if Herm Edwards is gonna go heavy there. So that's my only concern. But I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over. I'll say over.
I'm ready for it, man. I wanna see both teams break off 80-yard runs just to the house. That to me is just rival game prime time.
Round and pound football.
We got ESPN tonight. We got another great Pac-12 matchup tomorrow too. We got Utah, Colorado. Hey, we're vibing right now. The Pac-12 is we're doing good.
Yeah. On that note, let's get into our last topic where we're going to discuss if the home field advantage for the Wildcats matters at all because, as we know, they're 0-4. They lost last week to Colorado. They've been double-digit underdogs in multiple straight weeks. So, yeah, let me ask, like, do you think the home field advantage helps the Wildcats tonight at all?
Yes, I do. I think even though in a year where there are zero fans in attendance, maybe besides Phoenix, um, that really doesn't make a difference. But this year, for some reason, the Wildcats playing at home, it does. And like you said earlier, we looking back this season on their games at home, we watched them play the USC team that was ranked, 20th in the nation after a comeback win against ASU. And man, they held them to 5 points with till the last 5 minutes of the game, which to me is very impressive. And I know you guys had Grant Ginnell playing that game a lot better than Plummer, but still, regardless, that is very impressive. As well as the Colorado game too. You guys jumped out to a 2-touchdown lead against Colorado, and you might have missed the extra point. But you guys had a 2-touchdown lead against Colorado, going with like 5 minutes left in the second quarter. And I don't know what it is, but I think somehow that's gonna, maybe if it's just the first quarter, maybe ASU shakes it off or whatever. whatever the case may be, I think somehow it will, bring some kind of home field advantage playing in Tucson because the home team. Here's a good stat for it. The home team has won 6 of the last 7 territorial cups.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. But to me, I think this year's a little different with COVID and everything. I mean, I do think the overall mindset is different inside the players, coaches' heads for the game on both sides. Traveling not a lot, but playing in someone else's field. But to me, it's just going to come down. It's just the talent like battle, and I think ASU's the clear favorite there. But yeah, I just think looking at the line, it's been jumping all week for Arizona State. I think they're up to like even minus like favored by like even 12 maybe I saw somewhere, 11 and a half, even whatever. But yeah, I think that's too much for the territorial cup. I think it's gonna I think in the end it's going to be closer. I just think, but maybe not I think it's going to be like a touchdown game. That's what I think. I don't doubt that it could be 2 touchdowns with the Arizona State's offense being electric when they get going, but I think it's going to be below the number. What about you?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I'm pretty sure the line opened up at 10.5. I saw it, last night at 11.5, and it could be 12.5 now, like you said. So that's a lot of. I think what that means is people are slapping ASU, and that's falling perfectly into Vegas' plot, right? That's exactly what they want. They want you to hammer the favorite and think you're golden. But it's tough. It's really going to depend on what kind of offense shows up for ASU and how they can exploit this U of A defense. So, if this is a heavy ground game like we think it will be, I say, Arizona plus 12.5 all day because ASU has really not shown any promise through the air this season to put any trust into taking a 2-touchdown lead, even if the home team has won, 6 of the last 7 territorial cups.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, we really don't know what we're gonna get. Games at the Territorial Cup have been weird and in the past, and not always gone how the line or anything like anyone expected. So yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think it could be a weird game. Arizona seems fired up. The players seem fired up in the locker room, but countering the inner motivation of playing ASU. But yeah, I mean, the past few weeks, it's all been the same, so it's hard for me to say anything different with this Arizona team. They're close the first 3 quarters, and then they just fall apart. Same thing every week. They're eventually the defense just breaks down. And I don't see that. I would find it hard to believe. I would let me say this. I would find it very hard to believe if Arizona wins this football game.
Well, if we know anything from rivalry games, that we know anything can happen.
Yeah.
Put the spread aside, these two teams hate each other, and they have for years, hundreds of years. This is tradition, These guys they're gonna go out there and they're gonna hit each other harder than they've hit anyone this season because there's that little, that little part of this rivalry game, and yeah, anything can happen. I don't hold ASU to a 2-touchdown win. I mean, we just haven't seen it from them this year. And also, like you said, with U of A having the inconsistency, being there for 3 quarters and then losing it in the fourth. I don't think that'll happen tonight, this game. I think they'll be in. And I think taking it back to the first segment, what I said about ASU's defense being black and white, showing up for the first half and being completely not there the second half in two different games. I think, this game tonight, we see them play a full 4 quarters of defense.
Yeah, I feel like these teams, the storylines are kind of similar with both teams. Like, yeah, like the defenses, as you said, they struggle. Like they're both the same. Like they both kind of the first few quarters stay in it and then fall apart. And with the offenses, high expectations and doesn't they're not panning out just so much so far. So yeah, that's the line for me, considering the rivalry factor and the not Arizona State not playing a lot of games and everything considered. That's why I just don't. I think that number is too much. Josh? Let me hear your final prediction, score prediction.
So I'd say ASU 34-17.
Yeah, I'd say I got ASU 31-26.
Like,
Say that.
hey, as before we go here, is Kevin Sumlin's job in any kind of trouble after tonight? Win
Yeah,
or
great question. We went over it a lot on our normal Wildcat Dash yesterday. But yeah, I'm a big favorite of. I told Jacob yesterday that I believe Sumlin, win or lose this game, he shouldn't be here next year. It shouldn't matter. Being being one in, if you go one in, to me, if you go 0-6 or 1-5, to me that doesn't matter. To me, he already lost his locker room by before the season, having people leave the program during the season, during game weeks, having players opt out, which is I've never seen on a good program. Yeah, so to me, the short answer is 100%.
Yeah, and obviously the most glaring statistic we can look at for Kevin Sumlin right now is a school record 11-game losing streak dating back to last year. That's very tough to keep a guy like that in the in honcho spot in the next season, especially after what you said, having guys opt out halfway through this whatever season, whatever, and and losing the locker room. Like, I 100% agree with you, as well as a bunch of guys that left even before the season started too. But it's tough for you, maybe. But yeah, this is someone. Maybe it's time for someone to go back to the SEC.
Yeah, well, on that note, unfortunately, we're going to be out of time for today. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and make sure to check us out at Dash Sports TV on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And make sure to follow us on our website and go there at dashsports.tv, and check out our new partnership with SportsPack 12 at SportsPack 12 on Twitter and sportspack12.com, where we post columns, and we will be coming out with weekly short video clips there in the coming future. But yeah, guys, tune in tonight at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to the Territorial Cup between Arizona and Arizona State. And thanks for watching. Thanks, Josh. See you guys.